5 years after my husband died, I went to visit his grave, just as I always did, and left flowers at his headstone. I missed him so badly that I couldn't stop myself from FaceTiming his old disconnected number. To my shock, the call went through. The moment I saw my husband's face, I broke down sobbing. "Jason, don't worry. Mom, Dad, and Natalie are all doing well. Wait for me a little longer on the other side. In the next life, let's be husband and wife again, okay?" On the other end of the video call, Jason Warren froze for a second, a flicker of guilt passing through his eyes. "Lily," he said, "I promised Natalie that I'd be her husband again in the next life." I went still. "What do you mean again?" Jason took a deep breath. "The truth is, I never died. My older brother, Graham Warren, died. I felt sorry for Natalie. She was a widow raising a fatherless child with no one to rely on. But you wouldn't let me be a husband to both of you, so I had no choice but to fake my own death. Then I secretly married Natalie. For the last 10 years, you've taken care of my parents for me all by yourself. At your worst, you were working 5 jobs a day, and you even collapsed from exhaustion while unloading boxes. Lily, in this life, I'm the one who failed you. Asterisk, 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 the call was abruptly ended. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what had just happened for a long time. In a panic, I unlocked my phone, but there was no record of the call at all. It was as if everything that had just happened had been a hallucination. But as I stared at Jason's face on the headstone, it still felt as if a boulder had slammed down on my chest. A suffocating unease pressed so hard against my ribs that I could barely breathe. Before I could think it through, my phone suddenly rang. Jason's mother sounded unusually cheerful on the other end. "Lily, once you're done at the cemetery, come home right away. Stop by the grocery store on your way back. Natalie and your nephew are coming over today." I quickly agreed, arranged the flowers and memorial items I had brought, then slowly forced my stiff body upright and turned to leave. By the time I came home with bags in both hands, I could hear laughter spilling out from inside even from a distance. When I pushed open the door, Jason's mother was sliding a gold bracelet onto Natalie's wrist. The moment she saw me walk in with the groceries, the smile on her face froze for a split second. "Make dinner," she said. "Natalie and the boy are hungry." Smiled too. "Thanks, Lily." I nodded. Before heading into the kitchen, I glanced instinctively at the little boy tearing around the living room. Maybe it was that strange video call. Maybe it was the look on Jason's mother's face. Or maybe it was the boy's face, which looked far too much like Jason's. Either way, the unease inside me only grew stronger. After dinner, Jason's mother sent me into the kitchen as usual. "Lily, you go clean up first. I'll sit and talk with Natalie a little longer." I nodded, but some instinct still made me turn back and walk toward her bedroom door. When I saw her chatting with Natalie as if nothing were wrong, I almost laughed at myself for being paranoid. But just as I was about to leave, I saw her pull an envelope from a drawer and quickly stuff it into Natalie's purse. "Natalie, take this $20,000 for emergencies. Tell Jason not to tough it out if he's short on money. If he needs it, he should use it. Don't let him scrimp." Feet stopped cold and my heart sank. "Jason, my Jason." Natalie smiled and accepted the money. "Mom, I know. Jason said he'll bring you and Dad over to stay with us for a while soon. When the time comes, just tell Lily you're going on a trip." "Yes, yes, we'll wait." Rooms spun in front of my eyes. Jason really had faked his death and married his late brother's widow. Not only had his parents known all along, but now they were taking the money I had scraped together through years of hardship and using it to support them. For the past 5 years, after my day job, I had gone straight from one part-time shift to the next. I barely ate proper meals. I never bought new clothes. When I got sick, I simply endured it, and I couldn't bring myself to take time off. Penny by penny, I saved every dollar I could. Just yesterday, Jason's mother had held my hand with tears in her eyes, saying she felt guilty for dragging me down. Today, without a second thought, she handed away the money I had saved for their long-term care. I hurried back into the kitchen and stayed there until I managed to force down the shock and rage churning inside me. When I came out, Natalie stood and straightened her clothes. "Mom, Dad, it's getting late. I should head out." Jason's parents started to get up to see her off, but I spoke before they could. "Mom, I need to take the trash downstairs anyway. I'll walk Natalie out." Jason's mother froze for a moment, then nodded. "All right, go ahead." I picked up the trash bag by the kitchen door and followed Natalie out. When we reached downstairs, Natalie smiled at me. "Lily, you don't have to see me off. I can get a cab myself." I watched her cab turn the corner and disappear. Then I quickly walked to the curb, hailed another cab, and quietly followed her. When the car stopped, I watched Natalie get out with the boy's hand in hers. A familiar figure walked over and took the purse from her hand. The moment I saw his face clearly, it felt as if lightning had struck me straight through. It really was Jason. He was the husband I had mourned as dead for 5 years. I stood frozen in place, my eyes locked on the two figures walking away side by side. 5 years. I had endured more than 1,000 unbearable days and nights, working 5 jobs a day just to bury how much I missed him. And in the end, he hadn't died at all. Memories of the past flashed through my mind like scenes from a film reel. 6 years ago, Graham had an accident on his honeymoon. He fell from a cliff and died, and his body was never recovered. On the day of the funeral, Natalie cried until she fainted several times. When she was taken to the hospital, the doctors found out she was pregnant. Back then, Jason and I had just graduated from college. We had planned to go overseas together for graduate school and continue our work in physics. But that sudden tragedy shattered every plan we had. After Graham died, the person holding the family together was gone. Jason's father was so devastated that he suffered a brain hemorrhage. He survived after emergency treatment, but one side of his body was paralyzed, and he needed help eating, drinking, using the bathroom, and handling every basic part of daily life. Jason's mother's health declined sharply after the blow, and Natalie spent every day crying. Jason had just received his acceptance letter from a prestigious graduate program overseas, but with his family in crisis, he had to stay and hold the household together. I wanted to stay with him, but he refused to ruin my dreams. On the day I was supposed to leave, he came to see me off. "Lily, take my dream with you too. I can't be the reason you give yours up." I looked at his bloodshot eyes. He clearly didn't want me to go, but even then, he never once tried to tie me down. My heart softened. I chose to stay without hesitation. There was no wedding and no honeymoon. We only set aside a single day to get legally married at the courthouse. After that, I packed away the dreams I once had and joined a research institute here at home, starting from the very bottom. During the day, I worked hard at the lab. At night, I came home to take care of Jason's parents, comfort Natalie, and handle every little chore around the house. Jason worked himself to the bone and often didn't come home until midnight. But no matter how late it was, he would always text me to let me know where he was. When he came home, he would bring me the chicken noodle soup I loved. Every time he went on a business trip, there was always a gift for me in his suitcase. Once, after he got drunk, he lay with his head in my lap and cried as he apologized. "Lily, I've put you through so much. I swear I'll treat you well from now on. In 1 year, I'll give you the grandest wedding in the world and make you the happiest bride alive." The very next morning, he told me he wanted to be a husband to both me and Natalie so he could take care of her and the child. I stood there in shock. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't accept such an absurd arrangement. I still remembered that it was the first real fight we ever had. I was so furious that I smashed the matching mugs we had bought together on the day we got legally married. Jason stood there, staring at the glass scattered across the floor for a long time. After that, he never mentioned being a husband to both of us again. I thought the matter was over. But only half a year later, the constant overwork and crushing pressure had completely destroyed his body. Jason was diagnosed with a terminal illness. From diagnosis to death, it took only half a month. On his deathbed, he gripped my hand tightly. "Lily, please take care of Mom, Dad, and Natalie for me. In the next life, I'll make it up to you." I knelt beside his hospital bed, crying so hard I could barely breathe, and nodded again and again. After losing both of their sons one after the other, Jason's parents seemed to go gray overnight. They were both hospitalized, and even after they were discharged, their health was never the same. Not long after, Natalie chose to remarry and moved out with the child. To hold the family together, I quit my job at the research institute. I worked 5 jobs a day, leaving before sunrise and coming home late at night. Every day when I got home, I still had to wipe Jason's father down, comfort his mother through her endless grief, do the laundry, cook, and clean. Even though life was hard, I never forgot what Jason had told me before he died. Every month, I gave Natalie money to help her out. On weekends, I made soup and brought it to her myself. For 5 years, I was like a spinning top that could never stop. Day after day of exhaustion slowly dulled the pain of losing my husband. Only on the anniversary of his death each year did I dare to stop, stand alone before his headstone, and tell him everything I had been holding inside. I would cry my heart out, wipe away my tears, and keep moving. But only now did I realize he had been lying to me from beginning to end. When I returned home in a daze, I stood in front of Jason's parents. By the time I raised my head, tears were already gathering in my eyes. "Mom, who is Natalie's new husband? Have you met him?" Jason's mother's expression changed, and she hurried to change the subject. "Why are you asking that? That's her business. What does it have to do with you?" "Lily, don't tell me you're jealous that Natalie got to remarry. Let me tell you something. Natalie is beautiful. Of course some man would want her. Just average, so stop filling your head with nonsense. Dad and I already treat you like our own daughter. We should just live peacefully as a family." I looked at the guilt written all over their faces, and the last bit of affection I had for them shattered completely. Early the next morning, I went to the county clerk's office. The clerk took my marriage certificate and checked it over and over. When she finally looked up again, her expression was a little strange. "Ma'am, our system shows that you are unmarried. This marriage certificate is fake." Clerk seemed to want to say more, but I calmly took back the fake marriage certificate and nodded with a smile. When I walked out of the county clerk's office, the sky was bright and clear with a few clouds drifting overhead. People passed by me. Some were laughing, some were arguing, but all of them had somewhere to go. I stood there, not knowing where I belonged. Then I saw Natalie's Instagram post. She was announcing a birthday party for the boy that Sunday. I stared at the photo, and all the hurt and rage inside me surged up at once. I was going to confront them face to face. In the blink of an eye, the day of the birthday party arrived. I pretended to leave for work as usual. In reality, I hid nearby and quietly followed Jason's parents all the way to the hotel. When I arrived, Jason had his arm around Natalie, and the two of them were putting a party hat on the child together. He was standing alive right in front of me. The emotions I had held back for an entire week finally broke loose. I pushed through the crowd and rushed straight to the front. "Jason Warren, tell me the truth. You were never dead, were you? Why did you lie to me?" I was practically screaming. The entire room erupted. Natalie was the first to react. She grabbed Jason's arm and shouted toward the security guards below the stage. "What nonsense are you shouting?" "Security." Jason's mother also rushed up in a panic to stop me, her face turning pale with anxiety. "Lily, what are you doing? This is the boy's birthday party. How can you come here and make a scene? Get down right now. Stop embarrassing yourself." I turned to look at her. Why should I leave? "Jason, do you have the guts to tell everyone the truth? Back then, after Graham's accident, you said you wanted to be a husband to both me and Natalie so you could take care of your widowed sister-in-law." I refused. "From then on, you plotted every step of this. You even faked your own death to get away. You left me with your paralyzed father and your sick mother. I worked 5 jobs a day for 5 years to hold your family together, while you hid away and played happy family with Natalie." Jason stayed silent the entire time, not daring to refute a single word. Natalie, however, let out a cold laugh. "I think you've lost your mind. Jason and I are together openly. Both of our families and all our friends know about us, and our relationship is stable. You're nothing but a caregiver my in-laws were kind enough to take in. You spend all day fantasizing that you're married to my husband. It's honestly ridiculous." Guests below began whispering among themselves, calling me shameless. I looked at Jason and waited for his answer. A flicker of guilt crossed his eyes, but the words he spoke shattered the last of my hope. "Lily, my parents told me your fiancé ran off right before your wedding. You had no one to rely on and nowhere to go, so they took pity on you and let you live with them. But when was I ever with you? Stop making up stories here." I took a deep breath and wiped away my tears. Before anyone could react, I slapped him across the face. "That slap is for the 5 years you spent lying to me." Then I turned and slapped Natalie across the face as well. "That one is for the love I wasted. Neither of you deserves any of it." My palm burned and my whole body shook with fury. The boy beside them rushed over and stood in front of them. Then he started pounding his little fists against me again and again. "I'll beat you up. I'll beat you up. Don't bully my mom and dad." I looked at the family in front of me, so glaringly complete that it hurt, then at Jason's parents below, frantic to protect them at every turn. Closing my eyes, I asked one final question. Child is he, really? Jason's older brother had never looked much like him, but the boy in front of me was practically a miniature version of Jason. In Jason's silence, my heart sank inch by inch, then Natalie leaned close with a cold smile. "Child, of course he's my husband's. From beginning to end, I had been nothing but a joke. I stumbled 2 steps backward and finally gave up completely. Mom, Dad, for the past 5 years, I treated you like my own parents. I cared for you with everything I had, taking care of you in Jason's place. What did you do? You helped your son lie to me, used me as an unpaid servant, and now you're trying to smear me. Karma will find every one of you. I turned back to Jason. You used a fake marriage certificate to trick me into believing I was your wife, and I have proof that I've been used as unpaid help all these years. I hope you can still twist the truth like this when I hand everything over to the police. Finally dropped the silent act. Furious, he reached out, snatched my phone from my hand, and smashed it hard against the floor. Lily, don't push your luck, he signaled to the security guards. Drag this lunatic downstairs and lock her in the basement. Several guards rushed forward and grabbed my arms from both sides. They dragged me out with brutal force. I struggled desperately, but they punched me in the stomach again and again. Go, as they dragged me away, a man's hand suddenly groped my waist. I thrashed wildly, trying to shake him off, but another hand landed on my shoulder. Nice body. You look so quiet, but you've got a lot of fight in you. Struggling and come with us. The hostess told us to make sure you have a real good time. Filthy words stabbed into my heart like needles. Humiliation and rage swept through me. They had me pinned so tightly that I couldn't break free. I stared at Jason's cold face ahead of me and questioned him through my tears. Jason, are you really going to stand there and watch them do this to me? Aren't you afraid God will strike you down for this? Jason's body stiffened slightly, and for a split second, he seemed about to step forward. But when he saw Natalie and the child, he chose to stand by and watch coldly. Natalie smiled as she walked to my side, then lowered her voice and threatened me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not knowing your place. You just had to cling to Jason. Wouldn't it have been better to keep your head down and pretend you didn't know anything? But no, you had to provoke me. You're so unwilling to let this go. I'll hand you over to these men tonight. After years of sleeping alone, you must be desperate for a man, right? I fought with everything I had. But one hand after another held me down. Just as I was about to be dragged out of the ballroom by force, the doors were pushed open again. The onlookers turned toward the entrance, stunned. Jason stiffened all over and the color drained from his face in an instant. Graham. Jason's parents had been glaring at me in fury just a moment ago. The next second, they stumbled forward and Jason's father nearly toppled out of his wheelchair. My son. You're alive. You're really alive. My boy. Jason's mother broke down sobbing and wrapped her arms tightly around Graham, as if she needed to make sure the man in front of her was real. Jason's father trembled with excitement, his hands slapping the armrests again and again as tears filled his cloudy eyes. The two of them were lost in the joy of having their son return to them, crying too hard to speak. Not far away, Jason and Natalie stood frozen, their faces deathly pale, neither of them daring to step forward. The two people who had been so arrogant moments ago now had panic and terror written all over their faces the second they saw Graham. Graham raised a hand to calm his sobbing parents, then swept a cold gaze over Natalie and Jason. Wife remarried my own brother. Why did no one think to tell me about something that important? Natalie quickly forced down her panic and put on a weak, wounded expression. She stepped forward, choking on her tears. Graham, why did it take you so long to come back? For the past 6 years, I raised the child alone and endured so much gossip. It was so hard. Jason only married me because he pitied me, a widow raising a fatherless child. How could you misunderstand us like this? Do you know that on the day of your funeral, I almost followed you into the grave? If it hadn't been for the child, I really wouldn't have wanted to live. You're back now. That's all that matters. You're back. Every word sounded raw with pain, every sentence soaked in tears. If I hadn't been one of her victims, I almost would have believed her. But there was not a trace of pity in Graham's eyes. Instead, his face was full of mockery. He looked at Natalie's performance and let out a cold laugh. That's so. If you miss me so much, why did you legally marry my brother at the courthouse less than a year after I died? Was it really for the child? We used protection every time we slept together, so how exactly did you just happen to get pregnant? Is this child even mine? The moment he finished speaking, the entire room erupted into murmurs. Jason hurried forward, anxious to defend himself. Graham, I know you blame me for marrying Natalie, but you can't make things up and drag her name through the mud. You coming back alive is a blessing. Let's go home first and talk properly as a family. Graham's gaze settled on Jason, who had stepped in front of Natalie to protect her. Jason, my dear brother, I didn't die in that accident you planned. You must be terrified now, are you? Graham, are you insane? Jason's voice suddenly rose. We're brothers. How could I ever hurt you? Don't accuse people without proof. Brothers. Graham repeated the word as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. Whether I have proof or not isn't the point. The point is that you and Natalie can explain yourselves to the police next. Soon as he finished speaking, several police officers poured into the ballroom. The guests fell silent at once and moved aside on their own. The lead officer walked straight toward Jason and Natalie. Jason Warren. Natalie Warren. You are suspected of attempted murder, bigamy, and multiple related offenses. Please come with us to the station for questioning. Natalie's knees buckled, and she collapsed to the floor. Only then did Jason's parents fully snap out of the joy of being reunited with their older son. When they saw the police closing in, they panicked and instinctively moved in front of Jason. Graham, what are you doing? He's your own brother. You grew up together. He's gentle and timid. He wouldn't even hurt a fly. How could he possibly try to kill you? Did that woman trick you? She suddenly turned her head and glared viciously at me. Was it you? Were you whispering lies in Graham's ear? What gives you the right to turn our family against itself? They instinctively blamed everything on me. From beginning to end, they refused to face what their younger son was truly capable of. Jason's father sat in his wheelchair with tears streaming down his aged face. Graham, your brothers. What can't be talked through? Why does this have to go to the police? Natalie was so panicked that she completely lost control. She crawled over and grabbed Jason's mother by the pant leg. Mom, please say something for me. How could we possibly have hurt Graham? Jason's mother shook her hand off. Shut up. You're a curse on this family. You destroyed both of my sons. You seduced my older son, then you seduced my younger son. Are you so determined to destroy the Warrens? Natalie froze. Mom, how can you say that? You and Dad knew about me and Jason the whole time. You clearly allowed it. Why are you pushing all the blame onto me now? That's because you fooled us. When Jason saw Natalie being blamed, he instinctively reached out and shielded her behind him. Dad, Natalie did nothing wrong. We truly love each other. Watching him protect the woman he loved while he had treated me with such cruelty, my heart went cold. Graham raised an eyebrow, clearly unwilling to keep arguing. Dad, Mom, I'll make this clear today. The cliff fall years ago was not an accident, and it was not their first attempt on my life. That the two of them had plotted in secret to kill me several times, and every attempt failed. But later, Natalie found out she was pregnant with Jason's child, so the two of them had to get rid of me as quickly as possible. They planned for a long time, and in the end, they finally succeeded. Too bad for him. He never expected me to survive. Jason's mother turned to look at Jason in disbelief. After a long while, she finally forced out one sentence. Jason, is what your brother said true? Facing his parents' disappointed eyes and the officer's probing stares, Jason could no longer come up with a single excuse. His silence was the answer. Only then did his parents finally see the truth. The officers stepped forward and escorted Jason and Natalie away, each flanked on both sides. When they reached the door, Jason suddenly turned back and looked at me. There was guilt in that look, resentment, and something else I couldn't name. This absurd farce finally ended in disgrace. The guests left one after another. When the birthday boy saw his parents being taken away, he collapsed onto the floor and wailed. Jason's mother kept repeating through her sobs, God forgive us. What have we done? Only now did reality finally sink in. All these years, they had blindly favored their younger son, ignored right and wrong, and enabled his evil deeds. Only now did they realize how terribly wrong they had been. They had wronged me, but even more than that, they had wronged their older son, who had survived catastrophe after catastrophe and narrowly escaped death. Graham looked at his parents' regretful faces and simply stood off to the side, his expression indifferent. Jason's mother lifted her head and reached out to him. Graham, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I really didn't know. If I had known, I never would have agreed to what the two of them did. Remained unmoved, her hand froze in midair, then slowly dropped. We were so foolish. The elderly couple looked at their distant, cold older son, then noticed me standing nearby, the woman they had lied to and worn down for years. Regret filled their faces. They staggered over to me. Lily, we were wrong. We're sorry. You suffered so much these past 5 years. She reached out, wanting to take my hand. I stepped back and avoided her. In the past, they had accepted everything I gave them as if it were only natural. They treated my suffering as something I owed them, and now they wanted one weightless apology to erase 5 years of torment. Then who was going to make up for everything I had endured? Nothing in this world was that easy. For 5 years, I worked 5 jobs a day. I left home at 4 in the morning and came back at 11 at night. I cooked your meals. I washed your clothes. Dollar I saved each month went to you. Your son faked his death and deceived me. Natalie married him, and you knew the truth from beginning to end, yet you helped him hide it and scheme against me. I spent 5 years in your house as unpaid help, without even being recognized as family. And now you think one apology can wipe it all away. Impossible. I will make them pay for what they did. Just wait and see. Without waiting for them to say anything else, I turned and walked away quickly. For the first time in 5 years, I could finally breathe. The crushing pressure receded like a tide, and at last I could take a real breath. Meanwhile, Jason, who was being held in county jail, completely lost his nerve. Again and again, he had people pass messages to me, asking to meet. He wanted to make peace, hoping that if he acted weak enough, I would forgive him. I ignored him. Then he begged his parents to plead for him and convince me to let it go. But after everything that had happened, Jason's parents were filled with guilt toward me and Graham. As for their younger son, who had committed so much evil, they had given up on him for good. They refused to say another word on his behalf. Besides, Graham refused to go home. Jason's parents carried their guilt with nowhere to put it. With no one to blame but themselves, they could only spend the rest of their lives drowning in regret and self-reproach. On the day of the official trial, Graham and I appeared in court as witnesses. When Jason was brought in, I almost didn't recognize him. He had lost a shocking amount of weight. His eyes were sunken, and his face was covered in stubble. In hopes of getting reduced sentences, he and Natalie exposed each other's secrets and tore each other apart, putting every ugly side of themselves on full display. Natalie testified in court that every plan to harm Graham had been Jason's idea and that she had been coerced. Jason was so furious he nearly jumped out of his seat. You're lying. You seduced me first. You said you wanted to be with me. You were the one who said that if we didn't get rid of Graham, we'd never be able to be together openly. I seduced you. Jason, have you no shame? You were the one who secretly confessed to me and said you couldn't forget me from the first moment you saw me. You said Graham wasn't good enough for me, and that only you could. Order. The judge could not listen any longer and called the courtroom back to order. But Jason and Natalie had completely turned on each other, and no one could stop them. In front of everyone, Jason exposed Natalie's vicious intentions, saying that she had deliberately seduced him even before she married Graham. He claimed that she had even secretly drugged Graham in an attempt to kill him, and that after the attempt failed, she still refused to give up. Step by step, she had pushed him into planning the cliff accident. According to him, Natalie had actively participated in every evil act and every part of the plan. She was not the innocent accomplice she claimed to be. He insisted that he was the one whose judgment had been clouded and who had ultimately been led astray. Natalie, blinded by rage, ripped away Jason's last layer of pretense. That's because you said you hated your brother. You said your parents were biased and gave Graham all the best things first. You said you hated him, and that's why I helped you. The two of them went back and forth, exposing each other without restraint. The deep affection they once showed each other was nowhere to be seen. I stood on the witness stand, my heart unusually calm. It felt as if I were watching a play that had nothing to do with me. When it was my turn to testify, I placed the transfer records from the past 5 years, Jason's fake marriage certificate, and the evidence of his staged death on the table one by one. The prosecutor took them and presented each piece of evidence in court. Graham also testified about the details of the attempt on his life back then. The evidence was solid and the facts were clear. There was no room left for doubt or appeal. In the end, the judge delivered the verdict in court. Jason Warren is found guilty of attempted murder, bigamy, fraud, and multiple related offenses. On all counts, he is sentenced to 15 years in prison. Natalie Warren, as an accomplice who participated in the attempted murder and helped carry out the fraud, is sentenced to 12 years in prison. The gavel came down. When Jason was taken away, he looked toward me and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, no words came out. Natalie collapsed onto the floor and was dragged away by 2 bailiffs, and the tension I had carried for 5 years finally released completely. After the 2 of them went to prison, their 6-year-old child had no one to care for him. Graham's stance was firm. He made it clear that he would not take the child in, so the boy was placed in the care of Jason's parents. Afterward, Jason's parents contacted me many times, offering me generous compensation, whether in money or anything else I wanted. I refused all of it. I only took back, through legal means, the wages I deserved for 5 years of work and household labor. I didn't want their compensation. I didn't want their apologies. I didn't want anything from them. All I wanted was to have nothing more to do with the Warren family. Once I cast off the chains of that family, I returned to the research institute and picked up what I had abandoned 5 years ago. At first, the formulas, data, and lab reports felt painfully unfamiliar, almost like a foreign language. But little by little, as I worked with the familiar lab equipment again, it felt as if new life had been breathed into me. 1 year later, the dream of studying and researching abroad that I had once been forced to put aside finally came true. I was accepted into an international research program and earned the chance to participate in a major overseas project. On the day I left, Graham came to see me off at the airport. "Congratulations," he said. "Your dream may have been delayed, but it was never over." I smiled. "Thank you, Graham. You ever need anything, reach out anytime." I nodded, then turned and walked into security. I did not look back. Behind prison walls, Jason and Natalie spent every day staring at cold iron bars. They spent the rest of their lives trapped in endless regret and resentment toward each other, paying the lifelong price for the selfishness and cruelty of their past. For the rest of my life, I would live only for myself.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you won't miss the next one.